Hey, Dick,
Hey,
can you hear
Dick,
me?
can you hear me?
I heard that.
Great. I
Did you
was,
hear from me?
sorry,
Let me try to turn up my,
I can hear you pretty well now.
Wow.
What you got, Bob?
Uh-oh, Benita.
yes, I'm here. Although
Can
I
you
don't
speak?
have any pictures.
I see you, Dick.
But I can't make, I don't know.
Oh, Anthem?
Now it's got my
Get the
IT.
doctor in.
Hi, Kim. So
I am.
maybe he has allowed his video. But he can hear you and you can see him.
You can
I
see me,
just,
Dick?
I can hear, but I can't see anything.
I see you and Ann.
I can.
I see Ken Kimball.
You can probably hear you too.
Yep, I can hear you. I can see Ben.
Hello?
Hey,
Looks
Ben.
like Ryan's on, but his video's off.
Can you see me, Ken?
Yes, I
This is
can.
Jeff.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
look at a minute.
All right, I'm trying to pull up the agenda here. And I'm realizing that I'm not sure if I forwarded last week's minutes to everyone or last month's minutes to everyone. Although I know they were distributed via the e-news, but I can pull those up and share my screen if people want to review for a few minutes.
Yeah, and they're also up on the Jackson Town website.
Yeah.
Right, that's right. All right. Oh, Mike and Pam are joining.
Don't leave now.
Hey, Ann.
Hey, Pam.
Hi,
It's
Pam.
nice-
Hi, Mike.
Hey, guys. How you doing, Dick?
Hi.
Doing pretty
So-
well.
Hey, Ken.
Got the rumble of thunder in the background here.
Yeah, all of the audio is coming through a bit choppy for me. Can everyone else hear everything all right, or is it choppy
You
for
sound
you
good.
too?
Hi, Jeff.
I can hear.
Okay.
Hi, Dick.
Great.
Hello.
This will give other folks one more minute or two.
Hey Jeff, I don't know if your audio issue on my computer at least, I've got you up 3 times. I've got you connected as if you're just on a phone. I've got you connected with a video and I've got you connected without a video. And it looks like you're on mute
Interesting.
on 2 of those 3 of them. So I don't know if
Some of
that,
this-
you're definitely, it looks like you're hooked up through a phone call as well as the video feed.
Yeah,
yeah.
so I'm intentionally hooked up twice. One because my internet sometimes cuts out, and I'm called in just in case I cut out through the video on my computer, and I can at least everyone can hear me through my phone anyway. So that's accurate. I don't know why there's 3 though.
Yeah, I have 3.
Oh, and Tom is joining as well.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
All right, so that's everyone, right?
Open Gmail.
Is Brian coming?
Yeah, he's there. He's just, his video is not up.
Okay.
Oh, really? Try that.
Were you trying to turn your video on, Brian?
Yeah, it's showing me that I'm off and I'm clicking it.
I don't see it still, but I mean, I think we can get started and maybe
Yeah,
it'll
I'll be-
pop in
I'll
at
be
some point.
fine.
Yeah, your audio is coming through fine.
All right, that sounds good. Okay, let me pull up the agenda, and I have the minutes in an email from last month, which I guess I can share my screen and everyone can look at that for now. But it sounds like some other people may have already pulled it up on the town website or maybe saw it in the e-news. I forgot to forward Susan's email out to everyone. Sorry about that. Can everyone see it now, though?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Just going to scroll slowly through.
Jeff, I'll move to accept the meeting minutes.
Second.
All right. Do we have a second on that? Ben and Tom? All right. Okay, I'll just go all in favor and I'll call everyone's name up because I think that's how we have to do it. Let's see. Ben?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
All right, great. So the minutes are approved. I'm correct in thinking that Dick, you don't vote on these things, right?
I wasn't there, so it wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay. But in
On-
other
On
instances,
other issues, I am a voting member.
okay,
but,
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing I have on the agenda is Jackson Falls. Obviously, we completed the work we had planned down there. Thanks to Pam for organizing everything and to everyone who was able to make it. Sorry we had to shift things around. I know some people were planning to come on one of the days, and then we had to delay because the sod wasn't there in time. So I know most people were trying to make it, and some people obviously did. So thanks everyone for your help. Really good. I was actually down there today, and fortunately the new stuff anyway looks like it's still living and has been watered. The old stuff looks pretty dry, unfortunately, but I think we'll just need a little bit more rain and hopefully some consistent monitoring to get that back, or watering to get that back up to par. So I do want to send out a little thing to e-news or to the town, kind of just summarizing the work that was done. And I was wondering if I know we had talked at one point about putting other signs up at the falls, and maybe Mike had looked into that at one point, both for parking, and then I was wondering also about, just to briefly describe the reason why we're doing the work down there and how people can contribute to avoiding further degradation. Does that seem like a logical thing to do to people?
Sounds like a good idea. It's kind of hard to keep signs up, but you know.
You know,
Mike, did
my
you-
observation, the few times I've been down there, is the wood chips by themselves have made a huge difference in keeping people, because it's very clear to them and it's also an easy path for them to walk on. And many of the people are walking barefooted, so they actually head for it.
I totally agree.
I saw somebody was down there yesterday and somebody had their chair parked in the middle of the path. It was like a beach.
And
Sorry,
obviously,
Jeff, I think you just said my name. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike. That cut out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna say, I think you. Oh yeah, sorry. I think you said my name, and then my daughter ran in real quick, so I had to leave for a second. But you had asked? Did you ask about signs? Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, I had remembered at one point last year, I think we talked about signs and that maybe you were going to look into it, or that you were going to develop some ideas for signs or something like that. And I didn't know whether you had a chance to look into that.
Yeah, so I've written up kind of like a mock thing, and at one point, and this is probably 3 meetings ago, maybe I brought a sketch of it. But what I can do is I can email out kind of that mock-up of what I had been kind of thinking, and we can talk about it and change it, and you know, go over it. And the initial idea that I think we had talked about was essentially a you know, maybe not a huge kiosk, but something kind of in the kiosk family, welcoming people to Prospect Farm. To Jackson Falls. Welcome people to Jackson Falls. Spelling out, like, you know, 1 or 2 of the kind of the core guidelines. We had talked about putting a small map on it, so people kind of knew where the correct entrances were, and as well as directing people to the overflow parking. I think that was everything that we had when we talked 3 or 4 months ago that we said we would want on a sign. Does that sound about right to everybody?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only
Yes.
comment I would have now is that maybe it's best not to direct people to overflow parking.
Just for social distancing needs.
Yeah, and also because you know how Mike, you know how you talked about that parking area was on an island where basically when it was full, that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me if we direct people to overflow parking, we're just increasing the use of the walls, and it's just that's what's degrading. You know, the river, you know, that area is by the overuse.
Just to,
There are a lot of people there, even with those parking spaces blocked off.
to refresh everyone's memory, we're talking about probably maybe a year ago, I can't remember, a while ago, when we were addressing parking issues, we had brought up Mackworth Island outside of Portland in Falmouth, and how it's an incredibly popular spot. And the way that they manage impact is they just have a set number of spots, and that's it. And, you know, if there's no more parking, there's no more parking. And, you know, they have the advantage in that it's on an island, so you can't park anywhere on the causeway, you know, and you can't park anywhere in the neighborhood before the causeway. So it limits the amount of people that can go. And that was something that we had talked about at one point, about whether we say, these are the spots that are the spots that are spots. And then after that, you know, to limit the amount of people there. I think that when we discussed it, whenever that was, a year ago, whenever, I don't know if the majority decided that was the way to go or not. I can't remember how that conversation ended, but I know it was something that we certainly talked about.
yeah, Baxter State Park uses the same strategy. Essentially, once the parking lot's full, they don't let, you know, additional folks come in. It is a fairly effective strategy, and for the most part, Diana's Bath, which was getting overrun, is using that same strategy now. They actually have a parking attendant, as most of you probably seen. I think it's probably the best way to manage overuse, and I think we're going to see increased pressure on it, particularly as Diana's Bath has been sort of restricted so that not everybody and his brother can go there. You know, word of mouth gets out, and then we would start to see huge numbers here again. And this resource can only take so many people at a time.
And I think there's a problem because a lot of people are parking down in front of the Wentworth. I think that's what I heard. And so they're taking those spots and walking up from there, which obviously is hard for the Wentworth, and it also increases the number of people using the falls.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I guess I think we've talked about before is we do want to decrease the number of visitors, but if we had also talked about the idea of keeping a cap, but maybe reducing parking at the fall. So like some of the quote unquote overflow parking would really be overflow, it would be replacement parking. And specifically, that's where we had talked about ski touring's lot and the signs pointing to the ski touring lot as another potential place. I think for me, the questions is, I kind of like the way the place is signed right now. And if that were to stay permanent, I think this kind of changes the conversation. I do think people are showing us that they're smarter than we've given them credit for before, because we always have said that people don't know where to find additional parking in the village, and they are right now. So they're doing it. And you're right, they are doing it primarily in front of the Wentworth, which eventually will be a problem when the Wentworth reopens fully. My understanding is that is in fact public parking for the town, and that we've always just played nice with the Wentworth and let them use it as theirs, because the conservation easement does extend down there, but that might be a gray area, so I guess my understanding was the Wentworth parking, even though it could be used for the falls, especially the lower falls, we've always thought of as off limits. So really the public parking is the library or Jackson Ski Touring, if we're going to reduce it at the falls, and kind of keeping it with the idea of a cap rather than a reduction. I don't know what you want to call it exactly, but yeah, it's definitely, I think it looks nicer and seems nicer with fewer cars, less people running around. It's way easier to drive by in my experience this summer.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should put any more signs directing anyone else to alternative parking. I think it's functioning really well as it is. And like you said, people are figuring out where to park. And it's still busy.
Yeah. And I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, the only reason I could think to post signage is if we agree that there's like a cap we want to hit, and we're going to displace, we say we want to keep it at whatever, like 25 cars, and currently only 15 cars can go in the lower part. So 10 cars go someplace. I guess the only reason I could think of to have a sign, say, pointing them to Ski Touring's lot on Crossroad rather than the Wentworth, is if we specifically want them not to park at the Wentworth. I think we have to tell people not to do that. Because as we noted right now, people are just parking at the Wentworth because it's the closest obvious place. And if that's going to create a conflict in the future, I think we would need to head that conflict off in some way.
Is it actually causing a conflict? I didn't recognize that I didn't realize that the town actually owns the parking lot down there. But
I'd have to go back. We don't own it. The Wentworth, I believe the condominium association owns it, but the town's easement goes down there after it's kind of scoots around the houses.
Okay.
So we have an easement to access the river, which could be interpreted as that parking is for river parking, not for weddings and Wentworth, but we've never interpreted it that way as a town.
Okay, if that's the case, then I won't proceed further, because if it is indeed their land and we just have an easement to access, then they probably have a right to claim that as their parking. And I mean, I only say that without actually knowing what the actual language is.
Yeah, I mean, I've read it once or twice, and that's kind of the way you could read it. And I mean, that's I guess the way Larry used to explain it, in my memory, in the way that he had learned.
And then it would be up to the Wentworth whether they want to put a sign up that just says for Wentworth clients only.
I know that I remember to kind of go back to what Tom was saying. I know that when we had originally talked about directing people that overflow parking on Valley Cross Road was because we had talked about reducing, we were physically taking parking spaces away on Carter Notch. And I think that was like one of the agreements that we had. I thought maybe years ago we talked about it because we changed the parking on the, far end, the upper end of Carter Notch Road, and made those head-end parking spaces. And I for some reason, I thought we had talked about continuing to want to reduce the amount of parking on Carter Notch. And because people were upset by that, we were going to then direct them to a different place to park. And maybe my memory on that is fuzzy, but that's what I have in the back of my head about why we were originally looking at all that overflow parking.
Well, I think we opened up 4 spaces on the corner of Carter Notch and Valley Cross in order to shut down the parking on Valley Cross.
Oh,
Which
right.
the parking signs, no parking signs, still face road, and they should be facing the oncoming traffic. I don't know if there's any way of getting that fixed. I think the road agent would fix those. I mean, do you guys agree?
I mean, yeah, they're not perfect, but I think you have to willingly be not seeing them when you park there. Like
I've seen people parking right in front.
Yeah, but I think they're gonna. I guess yes, maybe they could be twisted a little, but I think if people are gonna park there, they just are counting on nobody showing up to tell them not to. I think they're people are still parking like in front of those bright orange signs and moving cones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, Dick,
I
do you
say
know
we
if
leave
the
it as
town
it is.
Oops, sorry.
What's that, Brian?
I think we should leave it as it is. I think it's working well. It's already busy, and introducing more signs just seems unnecessary.
Well, I might suggest that where it's being coned right now along the road as no parking, that you want probably some more signs along that section, because the cones in the end are not the best way to permanently mark your no parking zone.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it seems like it's been better the last couple weeks since they've added some additional no parking signs, but there were a couple weekends where folks were pretty much parked all up and down the road in front of people's houses and places where they obviously weren't supposed to be parking. And I guess one of the questions would be whether those signs or some permanent signs are going to be installed in those places, because it has been better. I've seen over the last couple weekends now that they have installed those. I'm sure people.
I think you have to say violators will be towed. I think if you say violators will be towed, you get their attention. If you just say no parking, they'll park there anyway. There were like 6 cars on Valley Cross the other day.
I mean,
Right in front of the sign and up towards the pond.
And then the second thing I might suggest, because some people do try to go up and park where the access is to the fire pond, which is also land actually owned by the town of, by the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, but the town has the rights to the fire pond. But some people do go up and park there, and they have coned that off. But the sign should then be clear that they should go up, because Jackson Ski Touring Foundation has given permission to use their parking lot in the summer. The signs should actually make clear to them that the first parking lot, which is where the fire pond access is not the parking lot. I think people turn on the Valley Cross. They think, well, it's the first left. They end up going in where they're not supposed to be, as opposed to going up the next 100 yards or so to get to the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation parking lot.
All right. Well, I mean, it seems like maybe we need to see how things go over the next few weeks, and see if people are kind of respecting the temporary signs that are in place now. Maybe that'll help us develop more of a longer term plan for permanent parking signage and how we want to go about that.
Dick, is it possible to get violators will be towed sign on Valley Cross? I mean, just even now, because.
I think, well, I guess not on Valley Cross, but on Carter Notch Road, there are signs that say tow zone. They're temporary signs, but they're there.
Dick, is that something the town could do?
Well, I'm listening to all this, and I'm going to go back to the Wentworth parking. That's something that really needs to be looked at. That easement, the original easement precluded parking there when it was granted. Parking is such a problem in this town. I don't think we want to do away with the parking, but I don't believe that area is only for Wentworth. That is a public parking area, and I think the town has the rights to it deeded. So we'd have to look at that further. We can always fix the no parking signs at the falls to make them more effective. We need to ask the police department to go ahead and enforce up there because it is a problem. And on a weekend, I think they can go up there and with a bullhorn say, okay, so-and-so in a SUV, Massachusetts plates, whatever, come move your car or it's going to be towed. And we have to talk to Chief Purley about it and say, you know, we want to make this work. The parking was reopened up there with the idea that it was going to be limited. We wanted limited parking. As we all know, you can't save people from themselves, but we can try, and we can try to, you know, make a situation where they're not clumping up and making an unsafe area for everybody. So the best we can do is work with Chief Purley, ask him, you know, to help us with I mean, he has to do the enforcement. We don't do the enforcement. He would be the man that would enforce the parking. I don't know, you know, signs, yep, they're helpful, but holy cow, how many signs do we need up there? It gets really kind of congested. It takes away from the aesthetic of the area.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've all been here long enough. We've seen it, you know, when it was quieter. I know the impact. We're trying to control it, but boy, let's be really careful about adding, you know, a whole lot of signage and, you know, park up here. We have to be careful about the fire pond on the other side, because that is a no parking area, so that there is access for the fire department to get at that hydrant. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Yeah, that's what I wrote down. Thank you.
So just to recap, I think I will still send out a mock-up, because I think we're maybe talking about slightly two different things. And that my thought is that the sign that I was thinking of was more of that kind of kiosk welcome sign, which I know that people feel strongly about not having too many signs up there, but I think it would be really nice to have something that identified it as town property and that kind of spelled out a little bit of the user use, you know, regulatory use and that sort of thing. So if that is what people want, I'll send that out. But if we're now saying that's not what we want, then just I kind of feel like maybe I need to feel that out and understand which way we're leaning right now.
Okay, I was talking just at the falls.
Parking related.
Yeah, parking related. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
We're still very much in the kiosk. Okay.
Yeah,
But,
I agree that
just a question on that. If the part along Carter Notch Road, which is not the parking lot, is to be designated as a no parking area, doesn't it have to be signed if Chief Purley's going to enforce it?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have to have signs in place for him to
Right.
point
So-
to. And say, look,
So I
here's
think
the
we're talking
no
about,
Go ahead.
we're talking about two sets of signs then, without trying to oversign the area. One is to designate so that you can enforce where the no parking zones are. And then the other is what I think Mike is talking about, which is pretty typical for many areas when you enter in. It doesn't have to be big, but at that parking lot and where the trail starts down, which essentially welcomes people, gives them the do's and don'ts. And yes, some people read it, some won't. But I do think that what Mike was talking about is just a single sign at the entrance to the walkway as you come down that sort of asks people to respect the resource that they're going into. And that's pretty much the limit of the signs we're talking about up there.
and that was something that was recommended in the falls
Yeah.
action.
Right.
Like one of the experts' thoughts was that the reason people walk all over is because there's nothing to say, please do this, please don't do that.
Yeah.
So there was that recommendation.
That makes sense. So yeah, I think Mike, if you can send that out and have people look at it, I agree that it makes sense to have something like that there. And I don't know, I guess maybe Dick, does the select board plan to have a conversation at some point with Chief Purley about the idea of enforcement and maybe what his ideas for kind of permanent signage that would be effective in that location might be?
I will do that, talk with Chris and see, what he wants to see up there for him to enforce the regulations.
That sounds good. All right, I think there was one other thing that we need to talk about with regard to the falls, which is that I think it was Bill and Ken pointed out that on the select board agenda for tomorrow night, there's an item talking about brush cutting. Sounded like there may have been some sort of emergency up at the falls that, I don't know, maybe there were issues with access or something like that. I don't know a whole lot of the background behind it, but Ken, I saw a couple of emails that you sent around with Bill and with Julie. I don't know if we ever heard any more information, or if Dick, you have any more information about what that brush cutting entails.
The idea was to cut the brush along the sidewalk to open up the sight lines. There was an incident. A child got swept down the falls. When the fire department responded, they couldn't see, over to the water to see where the child might have been hung up, or, exactly where it was. As it turned out, it was not. There were some bumps and bruises, but the child made it. But then they realized that it has grown up, and it used to be cut. Oh, I can remember a number of years ago, it was always a back and forth between the state and talking with Kenny Crowther about the work, and who would do it and how it would be done. And so anyway, it would be something that we want to keep those sight lines open. Is pretty much for safety. I don't think it impacts any of the work that you all have done at the falls itself. It's along the sidewalk there, but I'll listen to your input on that idea. But I'd also would like to know about how you're dealing with invasives in that whole area. Thank you.
Well, I can say that there's a lot of glossy buckthorn below the below the guardrail, and I go and snap them periodically. But what happens, this is how glossy buckthorn comes in. It's a foreign invasive. And what happens is when you clear cut, the glossy buckthorn comes back first, and it shades out all the native stuff. So there used to be a lot of ferns down there. And because this has been clear cut, the ferns are basically struggling because the glossy buckthorn's just gotten big. So, I mean, cutting there might be helpful, but then you have to go in and specifically target the glossy buckthorn so the ferns will come up.
I remember we had the discussion, this is probably like 7 or 8 years ago, because there was also a herd path that walked on the opposite side of the guardrail. And so we weren't sure what to do because people were going down there and it wasn't necessarily safe, and it was causing erosional issues, and it was getting cut all the time. And so I think at one point we said, oh, we should let it come up some. And as Pam mentioned, she's right, the mower blades hit the buckthorn and it's just spreading it farther and farther. So I think that's what originally we were saying, oh, let's cut it once every 2 years, or let's cut it less periodically, because we were trying to discourage people from going farther down on the guardrail side. But I agree. I think if they need to cut it for safety, we should cut it for safety, but then we would have to go in and really manage for that, because glossy buckthorn is pretty awful.
It's pernicious.
Yes. I hate it.
I know. I know. But it comes back so fast.
Yeah. I that sounds similar to how I remember also. And I wonder if there's a way to cut for sight lines, but maybe leave some
Right.
trees to become or something, so that
Like,
there could be some
select, yeah.
up, but still have those
Right,
good views. That
do more of it as topping so that
Yes.
whatever species is there that isn't buckthorn, regenerates with fresh sprouts or whatever, but you're not clear cutting it down so that nothing but the buckthorn is coming back.
Do you think the guys who cut can identify glossy buckthorn?
Right
We
now,
have
it's loaded,
I'm
it's
sorry?
loaded with berries right now.
Yeah.
Right now, buckthorn pretty much anywhere in Jackson is loaded with berries. So
Yeah.
good idea right now.
Yeah, I think the last time we discussed it, the issue was that they were brushing it right down to grade. And I think the topping idea probably didn't get mentioned because I don't think we felt we could enforce it or get them to do that. But I think that's probably the way to approach it. And then we won't have as much erosion, and we can still get in there and take out the buckthorn, yeah. That's what
If you took the buckthorn out, you'd be left with ferns it's not going to block anybody's line of sight too.
Right. Okay, well, it's a thought, and that'll be my discussion at the selectmen's meeting, that we have to do it in a sensitive way. We don't want to just, enhance the buckthorn, help it along. It doesn't need any help. So as we do it, I'll see if the idea of just topping or maybe giving certain sight lines, not all of it, but certain areas that would give a good view for safety reasons to the falls.
And Dick, that would be the area that's at the bottom edge of the parking lot, if I'm correct, down almost to the first house then?
Yeah, that's where the guardrail and the sidewalk.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly right.
If they do cut, can we ask them to wait a little bit longer, just because right now it's going into fruit? And so if they're not careful, removing it is really going to spread it pretty seriously. So maybe thinking just what seasonally what's best to cut it.
Easily put this off until later in the fall, because they've got, it'd be the highway department, they've got plenty to do. So they're not looking for, more work. So I think that in the time span, we can have a good discussion. Conservation Commission will have, good input, and everybody can stand there for an hour and think about it and say, okay, yeah, why don't we cut a channel here, leave something there, top these, and that doesn't have to be a clear cut, and we certainly don't want to do it when the buckthorn is going to seed in. It's like logging in a pine stand when it's a good cone year. You do it because you want the cones to get ground in and regenerate, but we do not want the buckthorn to regenerate. So yeah, we'll work on it.
And can they take it away and not chip it back in?
If we take it away, we have to deal with it out there too, either in a burn pile or some other way to.
There is a burn pile at the dump, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. I might suggest, and it's not fair to volunteer people, but if the highway department isn't clear on the identification of buckthorn, to have, when they go out there, is have Pam or Mike go out and just show them who's who relative
Be
to.
happy to.
Yeah.
On that note, is there a map or inventory of invasives there, or areas that need to be focused on?
There's also a lot of Japanese knotweed, which
Right.
down at the base of the falls, but it's on private property, I believe.
Okay.
There's a pretty serious infestation of Japanese knotweed there.
Yeah,
Oh.
I've seen it up further down the falls at the parsonage there. I've seen it
Yeah.
on the hillside there, but
I think Cindy would love to see it, somebody take care of it for her.
And I do have an uprooter tool to pull up the glossy buckthorn, but I find I don't have enough oomph to do it. But in the spring, when the ground is soft, is the best time to do it. But you have to put down like a board, and then you put this on it and you just kind of pry it up. That's how you get rid of the glossy buckthorn the best way.
Right.
But it's muscle.
All right, well, it sounds like at least with regard to the immediate issue, Dick, you're capable of passing that information on, and it sounds like it may not be an immediate issue anyway, and we might all have the chance to go out and kind of have a discussion about it at some point anyway.
Yes.
All right, well, thanks. Anyone else have anything further on Prospect Farm or on Jackson Falls?
Yeah.
All right.
No.
Oh,
Have we put in, Jeff, doesn't the bill have to be put in to the selectmen to put a request to the trust of trustees to pay for the soil and so forth?
so we put it in advance, if I remember correctly, and we
1,800 something.
Yeah, I haven't seen it show up yet on the trust for trustees.
Oh, and we do need some more bags of Moodoo just to fill in gaps.
Moodoo?
Moodoo. And
Yeah.
I think we still have some leeway on the money. So I can go to Lucy and pick up a few more bags. And what happens when I did it last time is you put it on the account at Lucy, and then Lucy transmits that bill to the Julies, and they pay it.
Yes, and then we go to the trustees of the trust funds to take it out of the proper account.
And we did basically allocate $1,800, and I know since we pay $200 less for the saw, we have some money.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Does
Either that or buy some more dirt, and you know where we ran out of turf? And just build that up so it's kind of level, and then just let natural vegetation move in there?
You mean the part that we put soil on?
Right.
And so what are you saying, just leave that and it'll take care of itself?
I mean, it will, as long as we keep the traffic out of there, vegetation abhors a vacuum. You will
Right.
get stuff that will come back in there. It'll take longer, but
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking is there are just big gaps between the sod
yeah.
pieces. Because I know your thing was to make sure we keep everything, touching with soil
Right.
so that it doesn't dry out and all that.
Just to reduce the amount of surface area on the edges, yes.
so do we need to vote to have Pam or to approve Pam to make any further purchases, or are we still kind of under that? If we're still under that $1,800 or within a reasonable give or take from that 1,800 that's already been approved by the select board and put in a request to the trust fund, do we need to do any further voting to buy additional things? I don't feel like we do, but anyone else?
Would be to use the additional for the sign that we're talking about that Mike is working on.
Right.
And I might suggest that might be the better use of it.
Yeah, I think
Only $25 for the Moodoo. But I mean, it's whatever you guys want.
We could always put in another request too.
Yeah.
I think you would have to put another request in if you're going to change the dynamics of what it was going to be used for. I don't think that we just turn over $1,800 to you and say, well, buy some signs or buy some Moodoo or whatever. I mean, you had a purpose, which was fine. But, if you want to get a nice sign put in, great. But I think you're going to have to ask for that on a separate account. or not on a separate account, on a separate invoice.
That makes sense. But it sounds like, Pam, what you're talking about would still fit within the original request.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Okay, anything else for Jackson Falls? Okay, so Prospect Farm, I think everyone probably saw that Tim Nolan submitted the forest management plan. Sounds like Ken did a pretty thorough review of it. I read through it. It's not my realm of expertise, so I didn't have a whole lot in the way of comments, but I didn't know if anyone else had any other thoughts. I know Ken already passed on a couple of minor edits for trail names and things like that, but largely we thought it fulfilled.
And Tim has already provided that revised map.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think we already recommended that the select board approve payment for that plan, fulfilled the criteria of what we were looking for. And I guess now we kind of just have to move on to implementing some of the near-term action items that it suggested.
Dick, Jeff, before we move on, Dick, do you know if the selectman has put in to the trust for trustees for Tim's payment yet?
Yes. I believe it's coming up. Can't remember if we've done it or if it's coming up in this meeting. I think
Okay.
it's coming up tomorrow night.
Because that would be out of the Baker Fund.
I could go to my notes. I'd have to leave you guys and go search out my agenda for tomorrow night. But yeah, I think it's being handled in a proper way. I read some of the comments about the logging. The logging up there isn't really for financial gain. Yeah, there is financial gain from logging anywhere, but I think that I don't think that's the purpose of the forestry plan, is not to create a constant logging environment. I think what we're looking for is to be good stewards of the land, and I think that the forestry plan will help us do that. 400-acre town forest is like a town itself. It needs diversity, and it needs age diversity, and it needs species diversity. I mean, there's quite a bit to it. I'm sure you all know that to be good to the land, you can't have just one type of tree or one age group. Really, to be helpful, which is what I think we try to do, is try to be helpful. That we want a diverse culture up there. Also, the original forestry plan was voted on by the town. That is the mandate came at a town meeting. And as we tweak that, we're going to have to look at it and say, are we going to bring this to the town again? Or are we just going to upgrade what is going on? Or are we going to change how we're going to do it? So that would be the discussion, I think, to go on with. As it is now, I think the forestry plan is really good. I don't think that we're trying to log every 5 years and take out, small trees for whatever gains, chip them and get whatever we can. We're not looking for that. The last cut, I think, was really thought out. There were patches that were wildlife cuts. I mean, that's what we want to do is again, be stewards of the land. And that and recreation is important. I read the deed also. Recreation's there, forestry is there. I think the town would like to think that wildlife cultivation should be there. And it's a many-faceted project, so I think that's going ahead nicely. Thank you.
Dick, the plan is, the commission is going to draft, as I think we indicated to the selectmen earlier, a general management plan for Prospect Farm, of which one chapter of it will be the forest management plan, so that it's a holistic, integrated document. And the concept was, after we've drafted the general management plan, is then to bring the whole unit to the town, as opposed to bringing them piecemeal. So that's the strategy that we've been working on.
That would be correct. You would bring it to the town.
Yep.
If you want to make a new statement for the management of Prospect Farm.
And a lot of it would be to just capture, the ordinances and all that, those types of things that have already passed, but to get it into a nice, clean package that has, this is a general management plan relative to recreational uses, and then a chapter, and it would be, this is the forest management plan, and try to have them work together as a unit, as opposed to just two distinct entities, because they really should work together as a unit.
So, Dick, it sounds like you can confirm that maybe after the meeting that the request has been put into the Baker Fund to have that payment made to Tim Nolan, and then obviously we'll keep you and everyone else posted as we develop a general management plan. But as far as the kind of short-term recommendations that were outlined in the forest management plan, does anyone have strong feelings about which of those we should try to tackle first? The boundary marking does seem like kind of like the low-hanging fruit that could get done pretty quickly and was highlighted as being pretty important in the plan. The other couple of short-term ones that were brought up were the end of stump dumping in that area as it contributes to invasive species, and then the other one being cleaning up some of the views.
So the email that had the plan in it went into my spam, and because my emails go to two different things, so I did not find it till about 4 minutes before this meeting started. So I'm 5 pages into the document, but I did see the section on boundary lines, and this is a minor thing, but I'm going to say it because this is the 5 pages I've made it to so far. And that's they talk about either using orange blaze or blue blazing for those boundaries, because it's the not red or yellow, based on yellow fading, red being too similar to Forest Service. And I would just, my 2 cents is, for what it's worth, is we should go with orange blazing, because the Forest Service does use blue blazes to designate hiking trails, specifically hiking trails that come off the AT. And not that I think anyone's going to get back there and think they're on a hiking trail and not on a boundary marker, but it would make sense to me to use orange so as not to confuse someone. Because if I'm somewhere in the woods and I see a blue blaze, I often, that in my mind, registers as like, oh, they mark hiking trails with blue blazes in the White Mountain National Forest.
Also
and
ski trails.
Yeah, when they're diamonds, as a ski trail as well. Yeah. So I think if we could maybe stick with orange, because it was kind of an open question in there. I'd say go with orange, and that way it won't confuse anybody.
I wrote that down. I think that's a good suggestion, because I think that blazing the lines is always good in this day and age. And I think orange would be appropriate. Thank you.
If we're to move ahead, if the town is to move ahead and get its boundaries remarked as recommended by Tim, can that be a request that would go in at the same time to pay Tim the the 3,000 plus the additional money for the blazing? Because
I I
did
think his
contact him and he said-
money for the management plan is already in motion, so I don't think we're
Okay.
going to amend that at this time. But I think that we can go ahead with the glazing, and that money would move right along also.
Is that something we need to vote on? To put in that request, it would be from the Baker Fund also, I assume?
How much would the blaze?
That's what it was set aside for, is the management of those lands.
Ken, Tim gave you a quote for the blazing, is that right?
Yes, it is the price that's in the forest management plan. And I did contact him and asked him if that's something he would do, and he said yes. It was 740 or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. So it seems like that would be an easy one to check off.
Yep.
The other ones.
Why don't you all vote on it, and then I can bring that to the other selectmen as your recommendation from the Conservation Commission.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we request the selectmen to take from the Baker Fund to pay Tim Nolan to remark the boundary lines for Prospect Farm for $700 and whatever dollars is in his report.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion?
It's on page 4. His estimate is 749.
Thanks.
Gotcha.
And to put the blazes in orange.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. All right, I'll go through the roll call. Dick,
Aye.
Ken,
Yeah, aye.
Pam, Mike,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
Did
Brian.
you get a second, Jeff? You did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think Dick seconded. Is that correct?
Brian did.
Oh, okay.
Brian did.
And Brian, you voted aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm also an aye. So, Dick, do you need me to send you that in writing?
No, I think this is, I think you have minutes, and if we have to go to the minutes, we can see that a vote was taken, and I don't think there's any dispute. The money's there. It's a good idea. It's something that should be done. I remember the last one. I think they did yellow though, didn't they, last time? I can't remember. They did only one line. It was where some barbed wire was, and I remember it got a little squirrely. But anyway, no, we'll go ahead with this. I think it's a good idea. But I think that I don't think you need any further documentation. If you do, I will be corrected by the others.
All right, that sounds good. As far as the general management plan goes, what do we think is the timeline for that, or the status?
Jeff, just before we move on there, one of the other two issues that Jeff brought up, Dick, was the stump dump up there. And I think Tim Nolan also noticed this in his report, that stump dumps are notorious for bringing in exotics, and we've already had knotweed brought in there. That the town did spray it late last September. There is still some knotweed, because I think they sprayed it rather late in the season, but knotweed, there are some plants that survived and are starting to come back again. But, you know, I think follow the same suggestion that Tim had, is this is not the appropriate place for a stump dump, just because it's going to continue to introduce exotics into Prospect Farm. And Tim, I think, gave examples of other towns where that very same issue has come up over and over again. But if we are to move, to make a recommendation to move the stump dump out of there, how do we proceed with the town to find an alternative site, or does the town have to provide an alternative site?
I'll have to ask our road agent. I don't know. I don't know if we have to provide that. I know that Drew used to have one down behind Hills on the flats. I don't know if Holmes had a stump dump or if he used Drew's. I don't know what the rulings would be on that. I'll find out. I've got a note here, stump dump, and ask Pat about alternatives. Thank you.
And then Jeff, to your question when I interrupted is, I had agreed to get a draft of a general management plan going. I'm a little behind because I've been doing some pro bono work for AMC on an environmental issue. But I have had the opportunity to go back and take a look at a number of general management plans from others, towns and so forth. And I've started to draft out the outline in some sections for the general management plan. And my plan was in August to get that out to the other two subcommittee members, which is Mike and Brian. And then hopefully by September, we would have something for the Conservation Commission to start to work with.
That sounds great. Any other thoughts on that issue for the time being?
No.
All right. Well, thanks, Ken, for getting that going. Anything else on Prospect Farm?
I had one quick thing.
Yep.
And maybe I was up there yesterday or 2 days ago, and maybe they do this every summer, but I noticed that on Ballantyne's land where the old Bogbrook parking lot was, where he puts his camper, there was a big rope there that was roped off, and it said, you know, please don't park here. And then up a little farther up by Camp Gap, there was another sign that said, you know, please don't park here, just kind of homemade signs. And I guess it made me realize maybe those are up every year, but it made me think that maybe this year people haven't been great about that. So it might not be a bad idea to either put an e-news or to somehow get out just to remind people, very friendly reminder that, hey, that's private land. Let's please respect their property and park in the appropriate spaces or something like that. Like I said, maybe he always puts that rope up, but I don't remember seeing that before. And there was also another little sign by the old Boggy Brook Trailhead, by the Bogbrook Trailhead as well, that said, this is now a closed trail. Please, you know, use the one farther up. So they looked newer to me. I go up there quite a bit and I don't remember seeing them. So,
Well, I think it's only new because he's just, well, starting last year, actually using that land, and he doesn't want to be inconvenienced. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He doesn't want to be inconvenienced driving in with his camper only to find out that some hikers parked there for the weekend and he can't park his camper. I can't speak for Camp Gout, but I imagine they probably just took that idea and said, hey, that wouldn't be bad for us too. Not many people tend to park in the Camp Gout kind of lot, you know, their actual parking spot. Some people park across the street from them or across the road. But that's, in the conversation I had with Mr. Ballantyne, it was really just to keep honest people honest, you know, just so there isn't any conflict, because he does want to be able to use that and not have any complications or holdups, or he just wants to be friendly.
Yeah.
And I think the best way for him to do that is to make sure he kind of draws the line, and he doesn't have to get frustrated that way.
Yeah, I should also note that, you know, the Ski Touring Foundation only has permission to make its parking lot on his property usable during the wintertime. The Ski Touring Foundation does not, you know, in the lease agreement that he made with the Ski Touring Foundation, he did not grant privileges for that parking lot to be used in the summer. A number of people do use it. And I believe in the past, he's actually parked his camper in that parking lot, which he has every right to do. So I think if we're going to put something in e-news, we should, be clear with folks. It's not going to help because there's a lot of cars there from out of state that don't read e-news, but they should actually go up to the official parking lot.
And I spoke with him also about the lot that you're talking about, Ken.
Yeah.
And this was last year that I spoke with him about it. He doesn't have I kind of feel weird to speak for him, but
Yeah.
when I asked him, he said he does not have a problem with someone parking there. I think initially, like you said, he planned to park his camper there, but maybe decided he prefers to have it where it is, where he's currently putting it.
Yeah.
And he was just really, lack for a better word, easygoing about having that. He just kind of brought it to our attention. Hey, that's my spot too. I was going to park my camper there. And I said, well, do you mind that people park there? And he said, no, of course not. But I was going to have my camper there. So I think as long as we are respecting, and everybody is respecting his generosity effectively, then we can probably continue doing what we're doing. So, I mean, I park up high when I can, but occasionally I'll park in the lower Ballantyne parking lot too.
Yeah. Because there's a lot more summer recreational use up there than
Absolutely.
even 5-10 years ago. There's a constant string of folks coming and going up there. I got confused when I was trying to figure out the boundaries of Prospect Farm, et cetera. But if I've got it correct, Camp Gout is actually on Ballantyne's property when you go to the tax records.
When I ran into him, he told me that he doesn't mind people in that lower lot, but he doesn't really want it advertised. Like he doesn't really,
Exactly.
Right.
Like don't tell people, but I'm not gonna throw anyone out. It's fine. But I'd rather not have it on maps and have it, out in the world that this is where you should park.
I guess what I didn't say is let's not even bring it up in e-news of not parking there, or that, you know what I mean? Like let's just let it go as it's going, because I think he's fine. And if you tell people not to park there, maybe some people realize, oh, there is a spot to park and I'm not supposed to park there. I don't care. I'm going to park there. So maybe just let it go as it's going, because like he's content, and I don't know.
But if he's marked off the Camp Gout, I believe he's marking off his own land.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
I get what
He
you're
has-
saying. He's marking off, don't park
Yes.
at Camp Gout.
Yeah. He's parked a camper up there this season also, so he's definitely putting the rope up to keep the camper spot in that old public parking lot just downhill of Camp Gout. So that's another, like, a camper spot essentially.
Right, but he's not. But
Yeah.
is Ken saying that he's putting no parking up at Camp Gout as well? Or
No, what I was saying is, I mean, I don't know who's putting the sign there, but if you look at the tax map, the parking across from Camp Gout is actually on his land.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's not on Camp Gout. And when you look at the tax records, it appears that Camp Gout is just the building itself. But I believe that the address is actually, I'd have to go back and look because I got totally confused when I was trying to figure out what I was looking at. But it appears that Camp Gout may be operating as a lease on his property.
You might.
Can just be building on land of another. So the building can be owned by, one person on somebody else's land.
Yeah, the tax records indicate that it's just the building. There's no land associated with the building in the tax record. And that would suggest that the building is they're probably on a lease with his, because all the land surrounding the building is Ballantyne's property.
Yeah.
I'll go back and amend what I said then. I saw the rope and thought that people, like he had put it up because people were parking there, but if he's doing it proactive,
Yeah.
and it's not an issue, then but that's fine with me. I was worried that people had been parking in that space. So
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. I guess this does bring up the issue that if we would need to potentially be looking at more parking up there, or getting back to the same issue of what kind of use do we want to provide for it up there in the summertime in the long run, if it's becoming a more frequented location in the summer months. And potentially, depending on if we can come up with a second, that could be a parking area in the future that wouldn't maybe take that much money to fill in and make appropriate. But, you know, just something to think of. This is, you know, in the 5 to 10 year range, we want to talk about more parking there for increased use.
Right, because what, legally you can fit 6 cars?
Yeah, if you park well.
But you do have
Right.
some folks who are, you know, hiking into the backcountry for a night or two. So they'd be occupying the same space for multiple days.
Right.
Because that's the parking lot also for the access to the Forest Service trails.
Yeah, I've done that to go to Knotweed to stay overnight.
Yeah.
Just leave your car there.
So I guess, do we have any way of contacting the landowner and just saying, have you had issues? Or should we just assume that he'll contact us if he has issues and otherwise is managing it in a way
He's
that,
actually a lawyer, so I think he would contact us. He's pretty confident in what he's doing. He knows he's in a power play, and yeah, he knows his boundaries. He knows what he's allowed to do, and he knows that he can take it all away if he wants. So
if there
maybe
is,
just
we'll hear from him.
continuing to be thankful and grateful is our best approach.
Yeah.
But I think putting in e-news, as suggested earlier, that alerting people that the official summer parking lot is the one up on the beginning of the Bogbrook Road, I should say, because that's.
Yeah.
As far as the parking goes, it seems like that would be something that might be covered in the general management plan, Ken.
Yes.
All right. Anything more for Prospect Farm right now?
No.
Just a quick question about the third item on for talking about with Jackson Ski Touring about the road maintenance, where there was the rutting and erosion that he had noted. Is, I guess, whose responsibility is that for maintaining that?
A good question. I think it's the town's responsibility right now, but I think the point was that he thought that maybe Jackson Ski Touring Foundation should have some responsibility for that as well. I don't know where I come down on that.
Okay.
I will bring it up with the Ski Touring Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That was another thing that he pointed out as something that should be addressed pretty quickly.
Well, there's drainage issues, particularly when you go from the Orchard Trail up, that don't have anything to do with ski touring. It's just simply that long-term maintenance on drainage up there hasn't occurred. If you go up there even in the summer, it can be a wet hike up to Hall's Ledge.
Yeah. I think that would be a good question for the management plan and a discussion with the select board. Is I guess the open question is, does the town have a vested interest in maintaining vehicular access and putting money into those or that kind of thing? Again, because in the recent past, those roads have only, when the Forest Service have had cuts in there, or the town, I guess, and part of the contracts, my understanding is that the loggers have had to improve the roads. So essentially we've been getting our road maintenance as part of logging operations up there. So I think that would be a question to address in a general management plan is, do we want to maintain the roads and under what circumstances before we even get to who pays for it? Because they could function as a summertime hiking trail and still function as a ski trail, probably, being able to drive a truck up it, that kind of thing.
Well, I think currently the,
Right. I think he was citing, well, there were some other sections that he noted.
yeah. And I think the other one was there's a need to re-clear the Hall's Ledge view shed. It's not a big job. And I can check with the Ski Touring Foundation because they go up there in the fall each year to brush out the whole Wildcat Valley Trail. I think a person in there with a chainsaw in an hour or two could probably do most of what's necessary.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question we should answer too, because that has been done in the past by the contractor that the town hires to clear the roads in the fall too, on an occasional basis. If we're talking about the view towards Mount Washington, the literal Hall's Edge North Field.
Yes, yeah.
And I guess that, so I guess the question would be, does the town pay for it and have the contractor do it, or would Ski Touring be able to do it? And I guess on that front too, we should also touch with our contractor to set up the clearing for this fall, our annual mowing up there, to kind of get that lined up for the fall. And I guess I don't know how to approach that question of whether the town wants to be the one doing that clearing, or or if Ski Touring has an interest in clearing that.
I can approach, I mean, I'm on the board, but I can't speak for the Ski Touring unless the
Well,
full
where,
board.
Because if I understand it correctly, that is currently part of our annual mowing. It's basically the road to Hall's Ledge, if we're going to call it a road, and the south lookouts to a certain degree. Like around the rock with the plaque and those other, like at least the lead-in of those lookouts. Maybe not the complete 100 yards downhill where you have to cut trees. I think it's a little bit less tree cutting up at the Hall's Ledge viewpoint cutting area. Maybe more, it's like 50 feet to cut the trees back to maintain the view rather than 100 yards like some of those south views. So I guess that would be a question for the management plan too, is which views do we want to keep putting money into in the long run? Is it just those two big ones up at the top and let go some of the ones along the way that were created in that logging back in 2008, or do we let them grow back in? I like the idea of mowing them for now, because they're all still there, mowing the easy parts to get to with machinery.
You're talking mowing, Tom, the orchard, or are you talking about?
This is, I guess, it's all of it. The orchard, the mowing is where the apple orchard, and then the road up to Hall's Ledge.
Okay.
Is traditionally what the town has paid for to be mowed.
And then to mow the view shed that has the, just before you get to Hall's Ledge on the left,
That is correct. Yes. Yes.
which is the most spectacular view shed up there.
Yes, it is.
Does the town, do we also maintain, there's like a couple small views along the orchard trail? Like I think just before the car, like there's a couple old views there. Do we do those as well? You don't know? They're kind of just grown in. I just noticed there are old trails that have kind of grown in. Old views that have kind of grown in. I didn't know.
There's one that it shows that there's one that comes up on his map before the old car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess we could go over the particular views. I guess we could get in touch and set up the mowing and then go over the particular views. I think in recent years, it's been primarily the orchard and the Hall's Ledge trail and the big views at the top, not any of the views off of the orchard trail, and the small views on the way up the Hall's Ledge trail, including the cellar holes to maintain the cellar holes from becoming overgrown.
So that's
Tom,
also town typically does.
the general management plan will not be done and then brought before the town and approved before this fall. And if those should be cut, then I think it would make sense to proceed ahead to have those areas both mowed and the view sheds opened.
Yeah, I mean, we could vote on that now, I think, if that was your question, Jeff?
Yeah, my question was just that's all stuff that is typically covered by the town that is part of our annual mowing. And then anything beyond that, it sounds like maybe Ken can inquire as to whether the Ski Touring Foundation would be interested or whether we would tack that on to what the town typically does.
I think if you want it permanently done year after year or every couple of years properly, it probably makes sense. And if the town is the one that's got those view sheds before, just still use that. Because a lot of the ski touring work up there is dependent on how many people volunteer to show up.
Okay, should we go ahead and vote on that then?
Yeah, I make a motion then to hire the typical contractor to continue to do the annual mowing at Prospect Farm, including the orchard and the Halls Trail and the view sheds along, and the view sheds, sorry, and cellar holes along the Halls Ledge Trail.
And those are marked on Tim's map.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Ken.
I said, and those are marked on Tim's map.
Okay, and Mike, you seconded? All
And
right.
it's to be paid for by the town, right?
Okay, I'll go through the roll here. Dick,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an I as well, so I'll I guess I can send Dick an email requesting that, or if again you're able to just take this from the minutes and pass it on to the select board, then I won't bother.
Excuse me, I'd like to have that wording to work with. So if you could send me an email on that, it would be very good.
Okay, I can do that. All right, anything else for Prospect Farm at the moment?
I guess I should have added to that. We've typically, per Mike's recommendation, asked to have it mowed after bird nesting season, which is typical. I think that's the typical of the last couple of years, but I guess we're going to put in writing that would be in there too, which is generally in that September area. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, but I mean, by late August, you're well in the clear. So I think we've always just said late August, early September is fine.
Still good to have it in writing.
Yeah.
And then a second issue would be, because there is some knotweed that's returning, is when I don't know if the town is planning on doing further treatment of knotweed this year, but if so, we would request that they retreat the stump dump to try to eradicate that. Usually it takes a couple of treatments before you're going to eradicate it.
So I'll add that to the request.
How many times has that been treated, or is that just one time, or?
To my knowledge,
Yeah, it was.
Once, right?
Yeah, just once last year. The year before that, we attempted to dig and burn, which didn't get us very far.
Okay.
actually the best thing to do is run up there right now with a little can of spray and just spot treat it. That's all we're doing when we wait till September, is letting it get a pretty strong root structure again.
So we can request that they do that sooner than later, if possible.
It would be more effective in trying to rein it in and eradicate it, yes. That infestation is still at the spot level where spot treatment has a good chance of eradicating it. Once it really gets spread, good luck.
Okay, anything else for Prospect Farm? I feel like there will continue to be things at every meeting that are in line with the forest management plan that we'll have to discuss tackling and continuing to try to check off the list. So I'll just keep that as an agenda item, talking about those recommendations. So I added Wildcat River to the agenda, mainly not because I have something to discuss immediately, but mainly because I think it sounds like there are some things that used to occur in the past, water quality monitoring and things like that, you know, I think it would be cool to get going again and to try to highlight a little bit more the fact that we do have a wild and scenic river in town. Like I said, nothing immediate, but I'd like to do more on that front if other people are interested in that as well.
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the Kevin Bennett, the building inspector, actually, I think he produced some documents that show that either we are, as the commission, or someone, being the town, is supposed to be monitoring that water source. And I don't know where we ended that. I just know it came up and we presented it sometime last year. So yeah, that's something we should be on top of.
What would that entail?
Well, there should be a document that more or less specifies what tests were done and when and what they are. You know, when we should do them and what they are. I don't have it off the top of my head.
There's a monitoring plan that I've seen, and I haven't seen any of the data, or you know, I don't know the background of it and when it was stopped, but there is a monitoring plan with specific locations that were presumably monitored for a number of years, and at some point that fizzled out.
I don't think we've done it since Phil Davies was chairman.
Yeah, Phil used to do it, and it was a sedimentation test.
Yeah.
And he said that he finished the last ones, that I think that there weren't any more that had to be done. But I think it's a really good idea to do more.
Yeah.
We had talked about last year the grammar school taking on some of those water quality analysis, like the really kind of garden variety simple ones. So looking at dissolved oxygen, you know, looking at pH, looking at macroinvertebrates and biological indicators. And that was scheduled to happen in the spring. We were going to do that with the 4th, 5th, 6th graders. Unfortunately, it's not at any of the sites that had previously been monitored, because we couldn't get students to those sites. Like, it had to have been lower down, like below the bridge, because that's where we could take them. But then, you know, as we all know, the world fell apart and there was no more school. So it didn't happen, but it was something that I would like to explore, because even though it's slightly different than what the monitoring that was done in the past was done, I just think the community connection would be great. And I think that it really lends itself well to a large project-based learning experience for the school to take on, you know, for students to take on. So really connect them there. So that is something that's in the back burner of happening. I have my doubts as to whether it probably couldn't happen this year either, maybe, depending on what SAU 9 decides in the next 3 weeks. But that's something that might happen as well.
Maybe it's something the kids could do with their parents and drop files off to communal place and have them sent in for testing. Don't necessarily have to as a group or a large group.
Well, yeah, I think that would be cool. And then the other thing that just occurred to me is that it'd be nice to even just add a little note onto the signs that you're developing, Mike, that talks about the fact that it's a wild and scenic river. I don't know whether that was in the plan or not. Cool. So yeah, something to think about and work on. Nothing immediate, like I said. Gray's Inn. Any updates there?
Still there. They've done a nice job mowing. If you haven't been through lately, it's mowed nice and tight. It's a nice little walk.
Are the signs still there? Do they hold up?
The only sign I remember seeing was the one for the mystery house loop, the mystery loop. I don't remember seeing the other ones, but I wasn't looking per se. There's one tree down on the loop, but I'll get to it at some point.
Sounds good. Okay, wetlands, or oh, sorry, conservation easements. That's something that I'm not entirely familiar with, so I don't know whether we need to cover anything at every meeting or if there's something we need to talk about right now.
They're fun.
I think in the minutes it said I was going to work with Pam to get out the letters to the landowners ahead of us doing our annual inspections.
That's no problem. Just need addresses, that sort of thing. The towns
Right.
also done it before, which was kind of surprising. It was nice, but we can certainly send them out ourselves. You know, the objective is just to avoid any ill will on the owners of the properties, because we have run into some bad situations.
Yeah, and I think everything's right in the letters. I think I've got the addresses in the letters.
Okay. Do you have the letter too, Tom?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I can.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I moved them all into the Google Drive, to which I invited everyone, but I can send them to you by email also.
Okay, that'd be cool. Because then we just have to tell them when, after what date we'll be in contact with them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that would be, yes. I think the way they're worded now, it kind of says, you know, a representative from the Conservation Commission will be in touch with you on their time schedule, essentially. If we could get more specific if we wanted to.
Right.
I forgot in the last meeting if we discussed, because Bill had done one of them, right? Did we discuss who was taking over him for that one?
Did he
thought we-
tell me?
Yeah, he must have, because
Yeah, Bill
I think
did
we
the
went through the list. We went through the list of who has what, and I think we did it by process of elimination, sadly.
So maybe that's a good one for Ben then.
Which now has that additional piece of land that they've purchased.
Across the street, yeah.
Yeah, which attaches to their other piece across the street.
Is that officially in an easement now?
I would have to talk to the Julies, but I'm pretty sure that's. Oh.
That's my understanding, but I haven't seen the actual copy that they would have had to update the easement with the town, because the town is the one that owns the easement. And we, on behalf of the town, do the annual monitoring.
So the easement is with the town, not the society, because their other property, I think, is with the society, isn't it?
Yes.
No, their other property, the easement is owned by the town. The society has the Oh, I always mess up the word.
That's
The,
Reverter, yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Or the executory interest, I guess you could say.
executory.
Mm.
If the town goes out of existence.
Right,
then the
right.
Society. Yeah.
All right, well, Tom, it sounds like you're generally on top of what we need to be doing for that.
Yep.
Am I still coming through my video? Your videos are breaking up a little bit, so I'm kind of assuming mine is too.
Your audio breaks up a little bit, but you're pretty good.
Okay. Let me know if it gets bad. Okay. Wetlands. I did receive an email from Julie. There was a statutory permit by notification for forestry. I'm struggling to remember where it was now, but it was denied. Basically, it didn't have some of the supporting information that was required for it. It wasn't because it was problematic in essence. It was just that they hadn't provided some of the I think it was a USGS map and some of the other supporting documents that are required for the permit by notification to be approved. But I don't think that's generally something that we review. Maybe it is. They did just change some of the rules recently. So either way, right now, it's not something that we have to review because it was denied. But if it comes back again at some point and we do have to review it, I'm sure we'll see it.
And Jeff, there's likely one that will be coming in from the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, which is the short connecting trail that'll go from the Keeney to Tom's Passage. And it does cross a little intermittent stream. And because I just finished out the paperwork, and Ellen Chandler will be submitting that in the near
Okay.
future.
Gotcha.
And that's on Forest Service land.
All right.
Is that currently marked?
Yes, it is. That is, it's flagged. We're still going through the, ski touring is still going through the permitting process with the Forest Service.
Okay.
Which one is Tom's Passage? I get it. I know they just renamed that. Is that the one that?
Yeah. You know when you're skiing southbound on the Ellis and you take the one way that goes out and it goes along the edge of a little beaver bog and then takes a sharp left, and then it's more or less directly across from the Gray's Infield.
Yep.
Okay, at the upstream side of that beaver bog on that trail, which is now called Tom's Passage, it's only about 600 feet to get right up onto the Keeney.
Huh.
So that allows somebody to ski up basically ski a 10K loop, which is going up the Ellis, jumping onto the Keeney, skiing down, and just before you start the right hand going up steep, you can cut back. Or if you're doing the Keeney and you don't feel like going all the way back up the hill to the top to grab the Ellis, you'll be able to cut across.
Wow.
The original plan was to come down on the old logging road that was used in the construction of Keeney to cross Missouri Brook. But it turns out that the 100-year floodplain is a monster there. And the Forest Service is working on trying to get Missouri Brook back in its original channel because the water precinct's upstream dam burst a number of years ago. They're still finding a way of trying to fix that. But the bridging costs across Missouri Brook would just be too expensive.
And do you know what the holdup is with the Forest Service and the water precinct again? I thought they were making progress.
No comment.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like we'll be seeing that one, Ken, soon. Am I still coming through?
But the short answer is I think the water precinct is still trying to work out stuff with DES or whatever.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think they're just financially trying to, that's a very expensive project. Why they're quite doing it, I'm not sure.
All right, any new business? Any public comment? Hank? All right.
No comment.
All right, thanks, Hank. And I'll just send you the video tomorrow, right, Hank?
Yeah, that's good.
Great. All right, well, I think that's it. Is everyone okay with going back to the first Monday of the month, August 3rd?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And are we assuming we're still on Zoom because things aren't necessarily getting better with regard to COVID-19? Does everyone want to stick with the 7 p.m. time? That
Not
works.
really, but if that works for you guys.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
All right. Do we need to take a vote to adjourn?
Yes. I make
Move to adjourn the meeting.
to adjourn the meeting.
I guess I second then.
All right, Dick.
I would say, let's go. Aye.
Ken.
Aye.
Pam.
Aye.
Mike.
Hi.
Tom.
Aye.
Ben.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thanks, everyone. We have a good.
Thank you for setting it up, Jeff.
Yeah, great job, Jeff. Thank you very much. You've
Thanks,
stepped up.
Jeff.
Oh,
And
well,
thanks, Dick, for attending.
Yes. Thank you.
Good meeting. I'm glad I got here.
all right.
Okay.
Feel free to take a slot on the watering calendar if you feel so inclined.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we're gonna need to for a little while.
Well, that'd be nice. So,
Anybody know the fire department?
all right. See you later.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.